मैं उस वक्त करीबन 15 साल का था। 26 मई 1908 को सुबह 10 बजे के करीब हज़रत मसीह मौद की वफात हुई। उस वक्त हमारा घर दुनियावी माल और ज़र के लिहाज से बिल्कुल खाली था। और ये बात मुझे खुद भी मुकम्मल तौर पर याद है कि हमारी अम्मा जान यानी हज़रत उम्मुल मोमिनीन रज़ी अल्लाह ताला अन्हा ने उस वक्त या उसके थोड़ी देर बाद अपने बच्चों को जमा किया और सब्र की तलकीन करते हुए उन्हें इन न भूलने वाले अल्फाज में नसीहत फरमाई कि बच्चों, घर खाली देख कर यह न समझना कि तुम्हारे अब्बा तुम्हारे लिए कुछ नहीं छोड़ गए। उन्होंने आसमान पर तुम्हारे लिए दुआओं का बड़ा भारी खजाना छोड़ा है जो तुम्हें वक्त पर मिलता रहेगा।
Qadian's Ahmadis have been shaken like never before. Grief-stricken, the community unites at the hand of Hazrat Hakim Nuruddin radiyallahu anhu. He is elected as Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, the promised Messiah alayhi salam's first successor. For most Ahmadis, Khilafat Ahmadiyya is a source of peace and security. But there is one discontented party who seek to undermine the institution of Khilafat.
Senior office holders in the Anjuman, Khwaja Kamaluddin Sahib, Maulvi Muhammad Ali Sahib, shortly after the election of the first Khalifa, their endeavors were to get rid of this system of Khilafat and have the Anjuman be superior and the authoritative head of the community. They began to spread the idea somewhat secretly amongst the people that there was no need for a Khalifa.
Hazrat Sayyida Nawab Mubaraka Begum Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha, immediately after the demise of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, according to her, it was the third night, she was shown in a dream the courtyard of Hazrat Amma Jan's house in which there is a throne. And Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam descended from the side where Hazrat Ummi Jan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha, the first wife of Hazrat Muslim Maud, used to live. He occupied that throne and stood on that throne. Just at that moment, the whole throne started trembling and shaking. But Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam was standing without shaking. He was not affected in the least by the shaking throne on which he was standing. And then in an awe-inspiring voice, he said, "Tell my community that they should recite this prayer very often, repeatedly. Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana wa hab lana min ladunka rahma innaka antal wahhab." Then I woke up and she says that after a while I mentioned it to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal, and she says that I saw such pain in his eyes that I can never forget it all my life, how deeply he was pained when I related this dream to him.
Maulvi Muhammad Ali Sahib and Khwaja Kamaluddin Sahib opposed Khilafat within the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Centering their activities in Lahore, their followers come to be known as the Lahori Jamaat.
At the time of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, they did not have the courage to come forward. And their desire of not having a Khalifa and just having the Anjuman somehow got subdued and it didn't come to surface. But then as the health of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu deteriorated, and especially after his demise, is when this actual mischief and issue came to surface. where the likes of Maulvi Muhammad Ali Sahab and Khwaja Kamaluddin Sahab and his associates, they clearly declare that we do not need a Khalifa because all we need is an Anjuman. Maybe they thought, it's just a young kid, 24, 25 years of age, and it might just be easy to convince him.
मैंने जाके जमा किए सारे ख़ानदान के लोग, नवाब मोहम्मद अली ख़ान और मी बशीर अहमद और गालिबन हमारे नाना, उनको जमा करके मैंने कहा कि देखो जमात के लिए बड़े फितने का वक्त है, अगर इस वक्त हम कायम न रहे तो इसका नतीजा ये होगा कि जमात क़यामत तक के लिए बिखर जाएगी। मैंने मौलवी साहब से यह पेश किया था कि मैं आपका नाम ले लूँगा और जमात आपकी बैत कर लेगी, उन्होंने इनकार कर दिया। मगर मैं फिर भी समझता हूँ कि अब भी अगर मैं नाम ले लूँ और आप लोग मेरी तायद में हों, सारे ख़ानदान हज़रत मसीह मऊद का, तो लोग सारी जमात उधर चले जाएगी। और मैंने यही समझा हुआ था कि मैं कोशिश ये करूँगा कि मौलवी मोहम्मद अली साहब के हाथ पर बैत कर दूँ, लेकिन खुदा ताला ने काम मुझसे लेना था तो मौलवी मोहम्मद अली से किस तरह खड़े हो जाते। नतीजा ये हुआ कि जब मैं वहाँ पहुँचा तो मुझे मौलवी मोहम्मद हसन साहब मरहूम ने कहा कि आप हाथ बढ़ाइए और बैत दीजिए। पहले तो मौलवी मोहम्मद अली ने इनकार किया, लेकिन उस वक्त खड़े हो गए कि अब मैं तकलीफ करता हूँ, मेरी बात भी कुछ सुन लीजिए। तमाम अमीर शोर हो जाए, हम नहीं सुनना चाहते, बैठ जाओ, हम नहीं सुनना चाहते। तो चुनांचे जमात ने बैत मेरी कर ली। उसके बाद उन्होंने लाहौर में जाके अपनी शोरश वगैरह शुरू कर दी। ख्वाजा कमालुद्दीन ने बार बार लिखा, अगर तुम मुस्लिम मौजूद हो तो कसम खा जाओ, मैं मान लूँगा। मगर मैंने कहा जब तक खुदा मुझे नहीं कहेगा मैंने नहीं कसम खानी, जब तक खुदा मुझे नहीं कहेगा मैं नहीं मानूंगा।
The split between those who pledge spiritual allegiance and those who oppose Khilafat now formally takes place. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II's younger brother, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad, is personally affected.
There was one very eminent companion. His name was Khan Bahadur Maulvi Ghulam Hassan Khan Sahab. He was a very devout Ahmadi and a very devout Mubai to Promised Messiah alayhi salam, who had an esteemed place for Promised Messiah alayhi salam. He did that early in 1890. In 1890 he became an Ahmadi, and from that day onward he became like a muballigh for Ahmadiyyat in Peshawar. And Promised Messiah himself held him in so much regard then that when he was deciding for a bride for his second son, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahab Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, he decided to marry him to the daughter of Khan Bahadur Maulvi Ghulam Hassan Khan Sahab.
When she got married, her father emphasized so much that whenever Hazrat Masih Maud enters the room, you must stand up. Even to this extent that when he goes back and he returns from the door and you have sat down, you will stand up again. And my grandmother told me that he emphasized and rubbed it to me so much that when Hazur entered my room, I was sitting on the charpai. I was so confused what to do, and she stood up on the charpai. Hazur smiled and went back again.
Promised Messiah alayhi salam laid the foundation of Sadr Anjuman, and he himself chose 14 members for Sadr Anjuman to be headed by Hazrat Maulvi Nuruddin Radhiyallahu Ta'ala Anhu and Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani. Then Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad was a member of it as well. But out of the 14 there was also a member, and he was the father-in-law of Hazrat Mirza Bashir Radhiyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, which is Khan Bahadur Maulvi Ghulam Hassan Khan Sahab. So he held quite a high position in Jamaat. But unfortunately, in 1914, when there was a split in the Jamaat, he went along with the Lahori party. He was a high-ranking holder of office in Lahori Jamaat.
वो कहा करते थे कि मैंने तो गौर किया, मुझे तो वही अंजुमन वाली बात दिखाई देती है, इसीलिए वो अंजुमन का साथ देते थे और भी बहुत से लोगों को बेचारों के लिए वो गुमराही का मूजिब बन गए, वो छोड़ बैठे.
It was a great source of sorrow and anxiety, not only for his daughter Hazrat Sarwar Sultan Begum, but also for Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu.
ये खाकसार हज़रत मसीह मऊद के घर में पैदा हुआ और ये खुदा की एक अजीम शान नेमत है जिसके शुक्रिया के लिए मेरी ज़बान में ताकत नहीं, बल्कि हक ये है कि मेरे दिल में इस शुक्रिया के तसव्वुर तक की गुंजाइश नहीं.
Before his birth, the Prophet ﷺ received a revelation. It's a long revelation in Arabic language, but it referred to the son that was going to be born as Qamarul Anbiya, or the moon of the prophets.
अपने बच्चों की आमीनों में हज़रत मसीह मऊद ने खुसूसियत के साथ अपनी औलाद के लिए इस दर्द व सोल और इस आहुजारी के साथ दुआएं की हैं कि मैं जब भी उन्हें पढ़ता हूँ तो अपने नफ्स में शर्मिंदा होकर ख्याल करता हूँ कि शायद हमारी कमजोरियां तो इन दुआओं और इन बशारतों के हकदार न हो, मगर फिर कहता हूँ कि खुदा की देन को कौन रोक सकता है.
Hazrat Abba Jan once told me that when he was very young, he used to address Masih Maud Islam as Abba Tu. Mind you, this Tu was not in Punjab culture, it was not a disrespectful situation, but you see, and Sahaba used to object to it. And I'm told that Masih Maud Islam used to tell them that mujhe acha lagta hai, I like this from him, so don't stop him. So Abba Jan told me that when I grew up, the station of Hazrat Masih Maud Islam, his stature was known to me. Then there was so much of inhibition in me that I could never address him directly afterwards, because he was so used to call him Abatu, Abatu.
While those claiming to be the most learned scholars have abandoned Khilafat Ahmadiyya, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad is proving himself a most loyal and obedient servant.
Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad साहब फरमाया करते थे कि मैं बाज़ मामलात में अपनी राय रखता हूँ और अपनी तरफ से दलील के साथ खलीफतुल मसीह को अपनी राय पेश करता हूँ, लेकिन अगर मेरी राय रद्द हो जाए तो कभी मुझे ख्याल भी नहीं आया कि क्यों ये रद्द हुई है. फिर कामिल इताअत के साथ उस हुक्म की बजावरी पर मैं लग जाता हूँ.
भाई तो थे, मगर हज़रत मामू जान हज़रत मिर्ज़ा बशीर अहमद बहुत अताअत गुज़ार, भाई से ज़्यादा वो खिलाफत का बहुत ज़्यादा करते थे.
Abba Jan, Mian Bashir Ahmad Saab, used to take me for Maghrib prayers with him. And invariably, after Maghrib prayers, he would go to Hazrat Muslim Maud to seek his guidance. Abba Jan, he's so respected otherwise. But at the same time, when he used to go to meet Hazrat Muslim Maud, he would sit on the floor. And when he is in presence of Hazrat Muslim Maud, he would not even raise his eyes and just keep on listening to him. So his love for Hazrat Muslim Maud was immense.
Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu loved his children so dearly, children of his brother Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad, that he would feel that fatherly responsibility towards them. There was a rumor at some point that Hazrat Baibzadi Amtu Salam Begum Sahiba's husband was going to do something that may cause her great distress. And when that rumor reached Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu, he was very upset. He couldn't sleep the whole night. And he was upset and he was angry because he said that the decision of Salam's marriage, Bashir has totally given to me. He said that Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad has given the total decision power of whom she marries to Hazrat Muslim Maud, and Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu also felt that responsibility, and he sent a message to her husband saying that don't think that she is without a father, essentially saying that she had Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu. It showed his absolute obedience that even for such a personal thing, deciding who his children was going to get married, he gave that decision power to Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu.
Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu writes on one occasion, whilst comparing the temperaments of the three brothers, the three sons of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam, and he says that on one end of the spectrum you had our elder brother, Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad Sahib, who had a jalal to his personality, very majestic, very strong. Anybody who was with him in the room knew that he was the strongest man in that room. And that was according to the prophecies of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. But our brother Mirza Sharif Ahmad Sahib was the most balanced of us three brothers. And then on the other end, you had me. Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib says that I was always the soft, gentle person. And so soft that people would say that I was weak.
Hazrat Nawab Mubaraka Begum Sahiba Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha narrates, explaining the love of Promised Messiah alayhi salam for his community. The Promised Messiah alayhi salam was both a father and a mother for his community. After Promised Messiah alayhi salam passed away, in her opinion, that role was taken on by both his eldest sons. While Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu was like a father of the community of Promised Messiah alayhi salam, he loved them dearly, but it was also his responsibility to look after their moral training and to keep an eye on their moral training. And if it required him being reserved like a father or guiding people in the right path, he would do so. In a similar way, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad, she said, took on a role of a mother, and he would, like a mother, very kindly and with love and compassion, guide the community.
One person to observe the personalities of both Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II and Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad will be their nephew, Sahibzada Mirza Ghulam Ahmad.
अम्मू साहब ने एक ख़त दिया, वो किसी की माफ़ी का था कि ये हुजूर ऐसी गलती नहीं है, हुजूर नाराज़ हैं तो इसको, कि किसी को माफ़ करने के लिए था। कहते मैं छोटा मतलब था, अभी 15-16 साल की उम्र होगी, कि तुम ये ले जाओ। कहते कि मैंने कहा कि मुझे डर लगता है। कहते क्या होगा, हज़रत मुस्लिम वो डांट देंगे ना? तो कोई बात नहीं है, डांट खा के आ जाना। अच्छा ये लेके गए, वो तो अब्बासूर को दिया उन्होंने अम्मू साहब का ख़त, और दोनों भाइयों में ख़त व किताबत हो रही थी। ये तो बीच में कासिद बने हुए थे ना, ले जाने वाले। खलीफतुल मसीह सानी ताला उन्होंने खूब डांट तो वो थे अम्मू साहब को रहे थे, लेकिन सुन ये रहे थे। ये फिर आए कि उन्होंने कहा क्यों, उन्होंने झुक झुका के दे दिया वो, कि जी वो उन्होंने ये कहा। फिर उन्होंने लिख के दे दिया कि लो ये फिर लेके जाओ। कहते फिर मैं डांट खा के आ गया। अब अम्मू साहब का, हज़रत मिर्ज़ा बशीर अहमद साहब का भी ये था कि वो जो समझते थे कि बात में मतलब ऐसी वो नहीं है, तो अम्मू साहब बात अपनी पूरी करते रहते थे, लोगों की भलाई के लिए भी और वो भी। फिर भी गया, फिर ये डांट खा के आ गया। मेरा ख्याल है 2 या 3 दफ़ा ये हुआ। फिर आखिर अब्बा ज़ुर ने बाद में अम्मू साहब को फिर जवाब दे दिया कि ठीक है।
Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II proves a most loving guardian for all his siblings, including youngest brother Hazrat Mirza Sharif Ahmad.
छोटे मामू जान का ये था कि उनसे कोई भी ज़रूरतमंद अगर आता था तो छोटे मामू जान हमेशा उसकी ज़रूरत पूरी करते थे, और जितने भी पैसे हों वो ये नहीं देखते थे कि मेरे पास कितने हैं या कम है या ज़रूरत पड़ सकती है, वो बहुत फ़राख दिली से दे देते थे। मजले मामू जान हज़रत मिर्ज़ा बशीर अहमद साहब ने हज़रत मुस्लिम मौद को शिकायत की कि मियाँ शरीफ को ज़रा समझाएं, ये खर्च में शायद ज़्यादा कर रहे हैं, ऐसे ना हो कि अपनी ये सारी जायदाद जो है ये ख़त्म कर दें। बड़े मामू जान ने कहा तो मियाँ बशीर मैं और आप किस लिए हैं। यानी ये देखें कि एक भाई जो है वो ये पूरी तरह ये ज़िम्मेवारी ले रहा है कि अगर हमारा छोटे भाई को कभी ज़रूरत पड़ी तो ये हमारा फ़र्ज़ होगा कि हम उसका ख्याल रखें।
Hazrat Maulana Abdul Rahim Dard Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu has narrated, he was with Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu and with Hazrat Mirza Sharif Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu as well in one of the rooms of Darul Masih on the ground floor in their early days of their youth. And they were sitting in a room and maybe playing something or enjoying something and laughing about it. And at that time, the door opened and Hazrat Muslim Maud Anhu came down to have a look what was going on. It was after this that Hazrat Muslim Maud Anhu wrote that great poetic verse, which is very common and every Ahmadi, Tifl and Khadim especially know it, that Naune halane jamaat, mujhe kuch kehna hai.
के जाए मेरा पैगाम न हो।
हज़रत साहब जिस काम में तफसील के साथ जाने की ज़रूरत होती थी और हज़रत साहब की मसरूफियात इसकी इजाज़त नहीं देती थी तो वो फिर काम पड़ता था कि मियां बशीर अहमद साहब पर।
The life and character of the Seal of Prophets, or Sirat Khatam al-Nabiyyin, is a magnificent work of Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib. At that time, he was about 25 years of age, so a very young man himself when he began writing these articles, which then became the first volume of his magnum opus. But despite that, if you read that book, you will be astounded at the magnificent manner in which he has put this work together. And Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II mentioned on one occasion that this book by Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib is the best sirat, the best work of history written on the life of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
He wrote this book extremely in a scholarly way, very big book, and he started from the early history of Arabia, then the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he took all the things, a masterpiece and a very scholarly contribution, and he wrote just like a most experienced historian.
Allah the Almighty really gave him a gift, and that gift was a gift of storytelling. And I have never seen a book so beautifully written and a story so magnificently told as in this book by Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib. It's just unbelievable. When you read those events, you are overcome with emotion because you feel like you are there, seeing that story with your own eyes.
And also he got the blessed opportunity to compile Siratul Mahdi, which is a biographical account of the Prophet ﷺ. So the fact that he was to put together biographies of these two great prophets of God, so the moon of the prophets, because he was able to tell the world about these two great prophets.
His is not an empty theoretical scholarship. Rather, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad enjoys a personal relationship with Allah the Almighty.
In prayer, he used to be completely lost, as if he is in the presence of Allah Almighty. In all the humble ways, he used to pray. That is something which always touched the hearts of all those people who looked at him. And I count myself as one of them.
During Qadian days, it came that Abba Jan was not well. And due to his illness, he was not able to go to the mosque for a few days, at least for Fajr prayers. At the Fajr time, he would be woken up by somebody shaking his toe. And when he looked down, there was no one.
कहते कि मुझे फजर का वक़्त हुआ तो मेरे पाँव का अंगूठा किसी ने हिलाया ऐसे करके जैसे उठाने के लिए हिलाता है। तो कहते मैंने कहा कि देखो अगर तुम डराने आए हो तो मैं नहीं डरता, लेकिन अगर जगाने आए हो तो मैं तुम्हें बता दूं कि मैं बीमार था, मैं चंद दिन नहीं जा सका, मैं आज जा रहा हूँ नमाज़ पढ़ने फजर की मस्जिद में। रोज़ सुबह जाते थे फजर की नमाज़ पढ़ने।
मैंने पूछा था कि आपको इल्हाम होता है कराने के लिए? मुझे कहने लगे कि मौलवी साहब शहीद कब पूछ रहे हो उनको? मैंने कहा नहीं, आपका पूछ रहा हूँ आपका पूछ रहा हूँ। लेकिन उस वक्त तो जवाब नहीं गया। कई दिन के बाद मैं गया हम साहब के पास, तो उस वक्त अपने बात जिक्र किया कि मेरा एक दफ़ा मेरा पर्चा ख़राब हुआ था तो मुझे अस्सलाम वालेकुम की आवाज़ आई, इस तरह की।
Once in Qadian, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziallahu Ta'ala Anhu was in his normal recitation of Holy Quran, was pondering over the ayat of Quran بغیر hisab, which means without any measure or without accountability. And in pondering it, he, for a moment, he thought and asked, as if asking God, whether I'll be one of the person who will be among people who are given a measure बगैर हिसाब.
अब्बा जान के कमरे में मैं गई हूँ, उस वक्त भी यही होंगी कोई 7-8 साल की। तो अब्बा जान कुरान शरीफ खोल के बैठे हुए हैं और थोड़े से परेशान से लग रहे हैं। तो मैं उनसे कहती हूँ कि अब्बा जान आप क्यों परेशान हैं? तो कहते हैं कि मैंने जब इस आयत पे पहुँचा कि जो फलां बंदा जो है वो बग़ैर हिसाब के अल्लाह मियाँ जन्नत में दाखिल करेगा, तो मेरे देखते देखते कुरान शरीफ के दोनों वर्क सफ़ेद हो गए और उस पर मोटा मोटा लिखा हुआ था बग़ैर हिसाब।
By now, a quarter of a century has passed since the split between those who accepted and those who opposed Khilafat Ahmadiyya. In all those years, there is one mistaken companion Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad has never stopped praying for.
In his book Silsila Ahmadiyya, he has listed the 14 founding members of Anjuman Ahmadiyya, and against the name of Khan Sahib, Khan Bahadur Maulvi Ghulam Hasan Khan Sahib Raziallahu Ta'ala Anhu, he's mentioned that this gentleman is the father-in-law of the writer of the book and he's opposed to Khilafat. But he indulges the reader that please pray that he should see the light and be guided to accept the right path and do Bai'at of Khalifa. So this shows the effort and the prayers that Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziallahu Ta'ala Anhu kept on doing for his father-in-law. And he always made efforts and tried to remain in contact. I wrote to him, trying to convince him. Maulvi Ghulam Hasan Khan Sahib was invited to attend the Jalsa Salana. And it was a unique Jalsa Salana because it was the 25 years Jubilee of Khilafat. And what he witnessed on that Jalsa opened his eyes. So he himself writes in Al-Fazl, when I came to Jalsa Salana, I was assured that Lahori Jamaat in 26 years not only has just been stagnant at what it was 26 years ago, but in fact has deteriorated. But the Jamaat that I left, which was insignificant in my eyes, has conquered frontiers and progressed by leaps and bounds, so much so that it has eclipsed what Lahori Jamaat is today. It's so far ahead that we always believed there will be a Muslim out, and we always believed what sort of jobs will you do. And the jobs that Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani has done are definitely those jobs which a Muslim was expected to do. Now one should bear in mind it was 1940. Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani has not even claimed to be a Muslim out at the time. So Khan Bahadur Maulvi Ghulam Hasan Khan Sahib Raziallahu Ta'ala Anhu did Bai'at.
लेकिन चूँकि मुत्तकी थे, अंजुमन जो लफ्ज़ है उसको समझ तो उनको यही आती थी कि ये अंजुमन लाहौरी जमात वाली अंजुमन मुराद है, मगर किस बात ने उनको हिदायत दी वो यही थी। आखिर पर वो आए और बैत कर ली तो अपने अक़ीदे के ख़िलाफ़ कैसे बैत की? जब उनसे पूछा गया तो उन्होंने कहा कि मैं खुदा के सलूक का क्या करूं? ये जो अल्लाह की तकदीर है, मदद इनकी कर रहा है जो गलत हो, और उनको हर मैदान में ज़क पहुंचा रहा है। तो इस तकदीर इलाही का क्या करूं? मेरे दिमाग की गलती है कोई, जिसको मैं पकड़ नहीं सका, मगर अल्लाह की फेली शहादत गवाही दे रही है।
Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Razillah Ta'ala Anhu, he has also published a letter thanking the people of Jamaat, that we are receiving letters left, right and center from Jamaat congratulating us, and his relief can be felt from that letter. My mother says that she was young and she remembers that Khan Bahadur Sahib used to, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib must have invited him. So he started living at Darul Masih with Hazrat Abbajan, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Razillah Ta'ala Anhu. And she said, I remember him that he lived there for quite a lot of years as a content and happy man. And Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib must have been also quite happy and pleased that after 26 years his father-in-law has come to do the Bai'at of the Khalifa and come to the right path.
Men who will take the greatest part in shaping the immediate future of our civilization.
My father, Sayyid Muhammad Ahmad, could not get into an engineering college, and my grandfather, Hazrat Mir Muhammad Ismail Sahib Razillah Ta'ala Anhu, very much wanted him to be successful in getting the admission. So when he could not, my grandfather was not very happy. But he was doubly displeased because he got himself admitted to Royal Indian Air Force as a pilot. And he was so displeased that when my father was called to go on the front, he did not come to bid him farewell. So my father says that I was sitting in this train in a very sad and lonely mood, and I was thinking that I'm going to the front to fight a war, and I don't know whether I will come back or not, whether I will survive it or not. And there is no one from my family or no one from my relatives who has come to bid farewell to me. And he said that why I was in this sad and grieved mood and sitting lonely in the train, I saw two people, angel-like people, walking towards me. And it was Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Razillah Ta'ala Anhu and his wife Hazrat Sarwar Sultan Begum Razillah Ta'ala Anha. And both of them came and said, we've come to say you farewell, because he knew, he quite well understood that this young boy of 18 and 19 years old is going on his own to fight a war, and he would like somebody to say him farewell. My father says that this generous deed or act of Hazrat Mirza Bashir himself has always remained in his mind, and he's always been grateful for it.
Arbitration of India's political problems still remains unsolved.
Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib mentions that I was reflecting over certain revelations and prophecies of the promised Messiah ﷺ. Around the late 1930s, it came to me that a time would come when the community would have to leave its headquarters in Qadian and move somewhere else, migrate. And he says that I wrote this to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II. Hazrat Muslim Maud Razillahu Ta'ala Anhu wrote back to Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib and said, you have realized this now. I have been saying this for the last 10 years, that a time would come when we would perhaps have to leave Qadian. So on one hand, you had Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib, who was 10 years ahead of what people could understand at that time. And then you had his elder brother, Hazrat Muslim Maud Razillahu Ta'ala Anhu, who was 20 years before his time.
1947, when Pakistan became an independent nation of more than 70 million.
The condition during the partition was very difficult. It was unsafe. Lots of fighting was happening, as it is written in history books as well.
Everybody was in danger. I actually don't agree with saying only Muslims were in danger or Hindus or Sikhs. I think everybody was uncertain. Everybody was in great danger from one another, which it was a very, very unfortunate episode of history.
In Qadian in 1947, at the time of the disturbances, the numerous refugees entered the town at the time of partition, when disturbances were going on all around the town.
I would like to quote here Anne-Marie Schemel, who is a great researcher of the history of the Indian subcontinent. She has acknowledged this fact in her book, one of her books, in Islam in the Indian subcontinent. She says that Qadian played the role of a sanctuary for the Muslims of the Punjab. So it wasn't only Ahmadis that Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya in Qadian, under the leadership of Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib and obviously under the instructions of Hazrat Muslim Maud that they were providing a shelter for.
Hazrat Muslim Maud mentions that during this time, a captain who was stationed in Batala, a British captain, he came and he met me, and he was very emotional, very overcome by emotion, and he said that they were going to start targeting Qadian.
हम तो उस जमाने में उधर थे जबकि ये लड़ाइयाँ हो रही थी, लड़के मारे जाते थे, औरतें मारी जाती थी और किस्म किस्म के मजालिम किए जाते थे, फसाद हो रहे हैं, मार रहे हैं, कादियों के इर्द हमले हो रहे हैं, इनके को मारा जा रहा है। मैं नक्शा साथ बना के ले गया था, 80 गांवों पर कादियों पर हमला हो चुका था और जला दिए गए थे और मार दिए गए थे लोग।
Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu mentions that as danger increased and the threat of an attack upon Qadian increased, I initially thought that I would remain here and become a martyr in the way of Allah the Almighty. I would not leave Qadian. So he said I was ready to give my life in Qadian. But when I reflected over various revelations of the promised Messiah ﷺ, I realized it was destined, it was decreed by Allah the Almighty that we would have to leave Qadian.
In those circumstances, it came to such an extent that this is an incident narrated by my uncle Mirza Majid Ahmad. Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani wrote a letter because so much of the Jamaat had already migrated and they were in Lahore, and so much of the workers had gone over there as well. So he wrote a letter to them as his will, stating in that if something happens to me, then Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu should take over the leadership of the Jamaat till the time a new Khalifa is elected. So it was something that he had taken into account. There could be that there is a threat to my life and something might happen to me.
When it became clear Hazrat Khalifatul Masih must migrate from Qadian to the newly formed Pakistan, attempts were made to secure transportation, of course. The main responsibility for securing this transportation was in the hands of Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib. An attempt was made to seek the assistance of the Pakistani government at that time. They didn't respond for many days, and when after 10-11 days they responded, they said that no safe transportation can be arranged from our end.
My uncle Mirza Muzaffar Ahmad Sahib, he mentions that during those days we could see Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani would go into Baitul Dua and spend hours and hours prayers over there. And when he would come out, his eyes would be red and swollen.
And this was very difficult for Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib because he had on his shoulders this huge responsibility of arranging transportation for the Khalifa of the time. In a state of such danger, and all of these efforts were being frustrated, on one occasion Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu called Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib and consoled him, comforted him and said that my attention has been drawn to a revelation of the promised Messiah ﷺ, Baad 11 inshallah, that after 11, God willing. So not to worry, I know that after 11, this transportation will be arranged. And then at 11:05, Captain Ataullah Sahib came from Lahore with some cars to pick up Hazrat Khalifatul Masih and take him to the newly formed Pakistan.
He left behind Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu as in charge of the affairs. And when we say in charge of the affairs, Qadian was in great danger. It was a state of chaos where nobody actually knew what was going on. So, it was uncertainty. If we, want to use one word for the whole of the situation, it was a time of great uncertainty.
The limited number of Ahmadis who were left in Qadian, from all four sides, they were surrounded by hostile people. The people who would be after your life and would be after everything you own.
They rushed into the houses of the head of the movement and of his brothers. Everything was ripped open, locks were broken, searched the women's apartments.
Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad remains in Qadian. But those who have already departed long for the holy town.
अपने देश में, अपनी बस्ती में, एक अपना भी तो घर था, जैसे सुंदर थी वो बस्ती, वैसा वो घर भी सुंदर था.
Hazrat Amma Jan said that Promised Messiah said to her that she would face 3 trials in her life. The first one was the passing away of Hazrat Mirza Mubarak Ahmad. As we know that he passed away at a very young age. He was 8 years old. And the second, obviously big trial, was passing away of Promised Messiah. She didn't know what the third trial was going to be. But when partition happened and the migration happened from Qadian to Pakistan, that was the third trial, because it was quite a big thing for Hazrat Amma Jan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha to leave Qadian and to leave the blessed grave of Promised Messiah and their home and everything. And she was quite distraught because of that. Hazrat Amma Jan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha used to say to Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu that you must take me back to Qadian to get me buried next to Promised Messiah. And he would obviously get tearful and walk away.
और उस घड़ी के लिए जान बेताब है जब ये आवारागर्दी ख़त्म हो और खुदा हमें कादियान में खैरियत से पहुंचा दे, आमीन. और हमारे जिस्म हज़रत मसीह मऊद अलैहिस्सलाम के जिस्म के करीब मिट्टी में दफन.
अपनी बस्ती में एक अपना भी तो घर था.
Hazrat Amma Jan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, Ummul Mu'mineen, of course loved all her children. But she had a very special and kind, soft space for her second son, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu. Now, it could be because of the nature of Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, which was very soft itself and very kind and loving. Whatever may be the reason, but Hazrat Amma Jan always, instead of calling him Bashir, used to call him Bushra and used to say, my Bushra. But Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu was left behind on direction of Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani. So this played on Hazrat Amma Jan's mind, and although she wouldn't say it, but Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu very much understood what is going on in the heart of Hazrat Amma Jan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu because of Bushra being in Qadian. So when the job was done, Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu asked Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu to come to Lahore.
इस तरह बरामदा था और इस तरह कमरा था मामू जान का, इस तरह मम्मी का था। और बार बार झांक रहे होते थे कि कादियान से काफिला आना होता था और हाथ में कुरान होता था, बेताब होकर टहल रहे होते थे। तो जब आ जाता था काफिला आ जाता था, सजदा शुक्र करते थे। मैंने खुद देखा कि
Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu came safely to Lahore. Immediately, Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani immediately held him by his arm and took him to Hazrat Amma Jan and said to Hazrat Amma Jan, look, I've brought your bushra.
The most important city of this region is called Lahore, an ancient trading center once surrounded by thick walls. Today the city has grown beyond the ancient gates.
Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad has arrived safely in Lahore. But here he faces a new family ordeal. One of his daughters has recently married Hazrat Muslim Maud's son.
मामू जान ने भेजा मेरी भाभी को कि हदीस में है कि पूछो लड़की से कि खुश हो। मामू भेजा तो मौजा ने कहा आगे कोई है तुम्हारे से बात ना सुनो है।
Abba Jan was very reluctant to communicate with Hazrat Muslim Maud because he had an ultimate respect for the Khalifa Waqt. He didn't want to even utter that reality with one thing in mind that it may hurt Hazur.
मामू जान कहते थे उसके अब्बा कि मैं हज़रत खलीफा सानी को नहीं कह सकता। तो फिर एक दिन काफ़ी अरसे के बाद हज़रत खलीफा सानी ने मौजन को बुलाया कि मैंने सुना है कि तुम्हें पसंद नहीं है। मौजन ने कहा हज़रत खलीफा सानी ने खुद करवाई।
The divorce was arranged. Hazrat Abba Jan returned everything which was given to her to Hazrat Muslim Maud, and he immediately returned it back that it is for her and it will remain with her. Naturally, he was very worried about her marriage again. One Ramadan, he prayed. So he said that I put a sort of a condition for Qabuliyat Dua that I will not arrange for iftari if my dua is accepted by God. It will always be sent to me by someone for complete 1 month, Ramadan. So this Abba Jan told me himself that it was a last roza, and on the loudspeaker in those days the azan was allowed. The speaker testing was there and there was no one. And I was very worried that now the azan will be there and nobody has sent me any iftari. He said before I could listen to Allahu Akbar, there was a knock outside and somebody came and said, this is for you. So he said that I was confident that my prayers for my daughter has been accepted.
रिश्ता किस तरह हुआ था? भाई की ज़बान अकेले आमदी थे। वो मामू जान को लिखते थे कि अपने मेरे ससुर को कि मैंने ख्वाब में देखा कि मेरा रिश्ता ऐसी जगह हो जिस लड़की को तलाक हुई है उससे रिश्ता दो। मैंने ख्वाब में देखा है कि आपकी बेटी। जब निकाह हुआ ना, मौजन को मामू जान ने कहा कि तुम जाके मिला लाओ। मैं लेके गई हज़रत खलीफा सानी पास, तो मौजन का हाथ पकड़ के बड़ा प्यार किया, वो किया कि मैं नाराज़ नहीं हूँ और बहुत दुआ करता हूँ तुम्हारे के।
Rabwa, Pakistan. By the 1960s, the town is well established as the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community's new headquarters. Here, the three sons of Hazrat Ahmadjan have reached their elder years. Hazrat Mirza Sharif Ahmad is the first to return to his creator.
The news spread all over and everybody started coming over. And Hazrat Ahmadjan, addressing my mother, he said that we should all now pray for Hazrat Muslim Maud, because when a mala, a string, when it breaks, the other associated beads, they start falling away. So we must pray for him.
मुझे एक नज़ारा उस वक़्त का याद है कि बड़ी फुप्पी जन खड़ी थी अब्बा जान की पांयती पे की तरफ, और अम्मू साहब दाखिल हुए हैं बाद में कमरे में, हज़रत मिर्ज़ा बशीर अहमद साहब। तो बड़ी फुप्पी जान ने आगे बढ़ के अम्मू साहब के गले लगी हैं। सिर्फ एक फ़िक्रा का है कि मंजले भाई अब हम 4 रह गए।
जब गुजर जाएंगे हम तुम पे पड़ेगा सब बार, जब गुजर जा।
लेकिन उसके बाद जब अम्मू साहब इतला देने गए हैं साहब को, तो उस दिन मैं वहाँ खड़ा था। अम्मू साहब खुद हरकत में आ गए, लेकिन सब उसी तरीके से बिल्कुल हौसला सब।
And that happened just one day before Jalsa Salana. This was something very extremely sorrowful for the whole community, that Jalsa celebrations are there. People are coming in thousands upon thousands from all parts of the Pakistan and even from abroad. And everywhere happiness, joy, thrill is there. And suddenly Hazrat Mirza Sharif Ahmad Sahib passed away. And everybody was very gloomy, very grief-stricken. And this is the first such incident of the demise of the son of the promised Messiah, which took place around that time. Next day was Jalsa. People were thinking, and everybody was saying, how is going to be the atmosphere of Jalsa in such a sadness?
Sahibzada Mirza Bashir Ahmad Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu, he used to deliver the inaugural speech of Jalsa Salana Rabwa. So before his inaugural speech of Jalsa Salana, he stood up and announced that today 4 of us are left, referring about Hazrat Masih Maud's children. Hazrat Muslim Maud was not well, so everybody naturally thought that about Hazrat Muslim Maud, and a wave of silence and a shock you could see spreading over the whole Jalsagah. It was filled to capacity, and everybody stood up. So Hazrat Abba Jan raised his hand and he said that आप लोग सब बैठ जाएं, ये खुदाई काफिला है, इसको मेरी और आपकी वफात नहीं रोक सकती, ये बढ़ता चला जाएगा. That Jalsa Salana is a divine movement and it will continue, and mine or your death will not stop it.
There was a feeling of emotions in his words, like the ointment is put on the wound of the person, just like that. His speech and his delivery and his message and the consolation which he gave to the member on that day, that was something which consoled the hearts of all the members of the community. That is my spiritual experience with the speech of Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib.
Now, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad must battle his own health concerns.
Tabbajan was not well, and I was sitting with him. Tabbajan was lying on the bed, reading something. A phone rang, so I picked up the phone and I said, Assalamu alaikum. Kaun bol rahe? To he said, Mirza Mahmud Ahmad. And I could not recollect, so I said, Mirza Mahmud Ahmad Kaun. So Hazrat Abba Jan got up and he said, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And he took the phone and talked to Hazrat Sahib. And that was the first time I realized that both Hazrat Abbajan and Muslim Maud, they talked to each other in Punjabi. I was not able to listen to Hazur's voice, but Hazrat Abbajan told him that, yes, most welcome, you can come over. And then after a little while, there was a knock outside the door, so I went out. Hazur was there. So naturally I said, come over. He said, no, just go and inform Mia Sahib, Mia Bashir. So I came in and he said, Hazur says that he wants to come in. He said, why don't you call him in? I said, no, he said that first inform him. So Hazrat Abbajan asked me to give his turban, so he put his turban on. Hazur came in. I drew an easy chair. They sat down and started talking in Punjabi with each other. He kept on sitting there for almost an hour. But their conversation was in Punjabi, and both of them addressed each other with the word tusi, like you say in Urdu, aap. So he would call him tusi and Hazrat Abbajan would call him tusi.
हजूर बीमार भी थे कुछ उन दिनों में, तो हज़रत मियाँ बशीर अहमद साहब रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु को भी बुलवा लिया अपने पास। चंद दिन वो भी आके रहे। तो खाने के ऊपर, दोपहर के खाने के ऊपर बरामदे में ही मेज लगती थी, वहाँ ही सब खुद भी बैठते थे, अम्मू साहब भी बैठते थे, दूसरे अजीज़ भी बैठते थे। हज़रत साहब की और मियाँ बशीर अहमद साहब रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु की आपस में गुफ्तगू शुरू हो जाती थी, और हमारे बाकी अजीज़ आहिस्ता आहिस्ता एक एक करके उठना शुरू होते थे। वो आखिर में मैं और बीबी रह जाते थे, कभी बीबी भी चली जाती थी, मैं यूँ करके बैठता था, यूँ हंसा वहाँ मुझसे बैठे सामने और मैं इस कोने में चुप करके बैठा हुआ अदब के साथ, और बातें कर रहे हैं। और कराची से लेकर पेशावर तक, बल्कि शायद इंग्लिस्तान से लेकर अमेरिका तक हर ख़ानदान को जानते हैं दोनों।
By 1962, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad is fighting a serious heart condition. Physicians advise he is overworked and must take complete rest. However, he remains devoted to Hazrat Muslim Maud.
The sister of Hazrat Khalifa Masih Rabi Rahimahullah Ta'ala, Amtul Basit, she had a complication in her labor, due to which there was a concern for the life of the mother as well as of the child as well. Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib was close to 70 years old then, and he had been advised to take rest because of illness, because of his condition. So Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, he would come to Amtul Basit Sahiba's house while she was in labor. He would be strolling outside her room in veranda in that heat, and it was the time of May, which is the peak time of summers in Pakistan, praying for her or praying all the time. And he would only leave for prayers and then come back again. And he kept on doing it day after day for 3 days, till the time the baby was born healthily, and both mother and the child was fine.
As his illness progresses, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad returns once more to Lahore.
During his last few days, he was semi-unconscious with very high fever. I used to be by his side at 23 Racecourse Road, Lahore. So that was the first time ever I heard this from him. Never before I've heard this expression. He number of times called Abba, Abba. And it was very disturbing for all of us, because everybody said that why suddenly he started doing that. And especially few hours before his death, though his voice had weakened a lot, but you could see from his lips, and if you come close to her, that he's calling Abba, Abba, many times over.
घर खाली देख कर यह न समझना कि तुम्हारे अब्बा तुम्हारे लिए कुछ नहीं छोड़ गए। उन्होंने आसमान पर तुम्हारे लिए दुआओं का बड़ा भारी खजाना छोड़ा है जो तुम्हें वक्त पर मिलता रहेगा। ये कोई मामूली रस्मी तसल्ली नहीं थी जो इंतहाई परेशानी के वक्त में गम रसीदा बच्चों को उनकी वालदा की तरफ से दी गई, बल्कि ये एक खुदाई आवाज थी और मसीह मौद के शानदार इल्हाम की गूंज थी कि अलैहि सल्लल्लाहु बिकाफिन नफ्सा। और फिर उस वक्त से लेकर आज तक हजरत मसीह मऊद अलैहिस्सलाम की दुआओं ने हमारा इस तरह साथ दिया है और अल्लाह का फजल इस तरह हमारे साथ हाथ रहा है कि उसके मुतालिक मैं हज़रत मसीह मऊद के इन अल्फाज में सिर्फ यही कह सकता हूँ कि अगर हर बाल हो जाए सफंदर तो फिर भी शुक्र है इम्कान के पास। और मैं यकीन रखता हूँ कि अगर हज़रत मसीह मऊद अलैहिस्सलाम की नस्ल नेकी और तकवा और इखलास और खिदमत दीन के मकाम पर कायम रहेगी तो हुजूर की दर्दमंदाना दुआएं, जिनका एक बहुत भारी खजाना आसमान पर जमा है, क़यामत तक हमारा साथ देती चली जाएंगी। खुदा करे कि हम हमेशा नेकी और दीनदारी के रास्ते पर कायम रहें और जब दुनिया से हमारी वापसी का वक्त आए तो हजरत मसीह मऊद अलैहिस्सलाम और हजरत अम्मा जान रज़ी अल्लाह अन्हा की रूहें हमें देख कर खुश हों कि हमारे बच्चों ने हमारे बाद अपने आसमानी आका का दामन नहीं छोड़ा और हम सब खुदा के हुजूर सुर्ख रूह होकर पहुंचे। आमीन या रब्बल आलमीन।
हमें उस यार से तकवा अता है, न ये हमसे के एहसाने खुदा है। हमें उस यार से तकवा अता है, मुझे तकवा से उस ने ये जज़ा दी, फसुब्हानल्लज़ी अख़ज़ल आदी, फसुब्हानल्लज़ी अख़ज़ल आदी।